Hello, everyone, and welcome to our latest episode of Retail Media Rundown. I can't believe it's spring. We are now in April, and I feel really excited because today we have a very special guest joining us here in our studios in Bellevue, Washington. Luis, who is our new managing director in Europe, is here. And Luis, welcome. How's your trip been so far here in Bellevue?
Thank you very much, Kashif. Super excited to be here. Yes, well, first of all, as you know, has been or was home for me for almost 20 years. So on the personal front, super excited to be back and reconnect. On the professional front, super pumped with everything that we have been discussing, the opportunities, the meetings we had with our partners. It's just been a great trip so far, and there's so much work to do.
Yeah, there is. And we've had a great time just kind of having Luis join. And obviously, I'm here with my partner in crime, Joon, Choi, as possible. You've been kind of pushed out a little bit.
I know. Sorry.
You feel
Sorry, Luis is more important.
That's all. What have you done for me, Luis?
Yeah, special.
Wait till next month.
We'll get that back. But no, Luis, great time to join, to your point. Interesting space. I can't believe we're already into April of this year. In a year and in a time where there's so much going on in the space of retail media. There's so much advancements and changes and whatnot. So with you being here, it'll be amazing to hear. Maybe start off a little bit more about your background, but then dive into, I think even for the audience, what are some of the things more relevant to the European market as you kind of get in that space and the expert in that space? What are some of the things that when you think of retail media in Europe that kind of comes to mind?
Absolutely. So as most people know, my background recently, I was at WPP as the vice president for the commerce practice. So a fairly new area, rolling all the commerce practices of the different agencies into one. So that was super exciting, leading, basically the largest sort of media group over there in the UK. Prior to that, led Jellyfish in terms of commerce and partnerships with Amazon.
Yeah.
Prior to that, an Amazonian. So, a lot of us come from that path of life, shipped from here, from Seattle, all the way, well, technically we're in Bellevue, so shipped, from Seattle to London back in 2018. So, I've seen a lot of things during my time over there in the UK. I think when I started, we were still talking about how is, retail and sponsored ads different than search? It's the same thing. It's terrible mistake, right? And now we're talking about commerce, omnichannel, agentic. So, it's been in a relatively short amount of time. There has been so many developments in the area, and it's fascinating. I think in Europe, I would have said something different when I was, working for Microsoft in search. I would say things like, if you want to see where the future is in the UK, just look at what the US is doing for search. I think in retail media and commerce, that doesn't hold true anymore, right? Each country, each marketplace is doing things that are completely different or are more advanced in certain areas. I guess that's the first statement. So Europe is a fascinating area because, the UK will have potentially more similarities in terms of dynamics that you see in the States. But then you take Italy and Spain, social commerce is just growing, right? You have, more consolidation here, more of the bigger players. You have your Amazons, your Walmarts, Rodel, that kind of thing. Over there's over 200 retail media networks. So fragmentation is prevalent, and standardization, measurement, all of that is, I think, the areas that really keep me up at night and figuring out how we can basically address that.
Yeah, and I think it's a great call because here in the U.S., we really have just one big market, and in Europe, there's the EU7 historically, and that's been expanded further. As you think about AI now, right, and AI in the world of retail media, right, Joon and I talk about that a lot when it comes to the U.S. market and the EU market. Would love to kind of hear your take as, being in the market when it comes to now specifically AI.
Yeah.
What does that look like from your perspective, your experience with brands, and obviously from your AMC background, what's kind of top of mind? Just hearing that perspective is coming from your
Absolutely. It's very timely because one of the last projects I did when I was at WPP was about a point of view on that. And, obviously I'm not representing WPP here, let's just be clear, right? But, the things that struck me were really, the difference, I guess, in terms of the evolution. So I was at an event, I think 3 or 4 months ago, that we were showing what was happening in the US. And even though it's not overtaking, there's definitely a lot of engagement around agents and, purchase through agents and things like that. That's more predominant here.
Yeah.
In Europe or in the UK, in this case, I think we're still in early days, right? Like Rufus hasn't been officially launched yet as far as I know. Maybe some of the people listening to this might have more information, but, there's some betas going on and things like that. But what is interesting over there is that we are at that stage of the conversation on more of the research, which is, if you remember, I posted something on LinkedIn about that, thinking, well, it's kind of like going to the basics, right? We're going back to the SEO era of how do we tell the story about the brand. Because right now, your agentic commerce or your conversations are more about learning models and things like that. It's really resurfacing what makes a brand unique. So we're going back to brand building, right? That's where we are, I think, in some areas. Not every country has fully embraced it. So there's still, for a little bit of a runway there. Are we going to be in a situation where, agents will be talking to agents in 12 months? I don't think so. I think that will take some time. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of hype out there, right? I think AI is definitely here to stay. That specific area, I think will, like anything, the dust will settle. And then we'll see what happens. Another interesting area on AI that I do see that I think is actually super cool is, everything that's happening when it comes to investment and strategy. So more around how can AI help practitioners basically drive the best and spend less time doing manual tasks, right? Really drive efficiencies and then leverage or repurpose that time to really bring insights. I mean, when we started conversations with Xnurta, a year ago, that's what really caught my attention, right? The fact that Xnurta was so advanced in that area. And, it's really bringing like the next generation of tools that can help, those practitioners drive those efficiencies, right? So less time data mining, more time, driving insights, driving true value, I guess, for the clients and customers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. One last question, because I know we're excited to have you here. We'll definitely dive into some of the latest trends and, obviously the conversation around LLMs and ChatGPT and all that. We've been talking about that, but curious about something JC and I talk a lot about at AMC, right? AMC, big push here in the US, AMC and AI. What have you seen from your point of view when it comes to AMC in the European market, and how much is that something being fully adopted versus still early days? And then even in the AMC world, do you see it more push towards a certain segment of clients and brands and agencies? Is it starting to be broadly kind of accepted as something everyone's?
Yeah. Oh boy, that's an interesting. I think if we go back to the idea of retail maturity frameworks, there are definitely some advanced CPG brands that have embraced AMC. Now, embracing AMC doesn't mean that they're maximizing the potential. It just means that they're using certain elements of it. So there's definitely more opportunity to go deeper in those areas. Some of our partners are really, really good in working with brands on AMC, and that to me is fascinating because one of our partners was actually on stage at Unbox, and the way they have talked about it is more from a business perspective, and I think that's where it clicks. So I think AMC is, I would say, it's not early days, but it's not a mature thing. I think there's a lot of opportunities to drive even more. I think you see pockets of goodness. That's basically what I see in the market, and I think there's still a big opportunity to drive more adoption and set the foundation on what I used to call the baseline scenarios of like reach and frequency, things like that, and going to something beyond. And that's what I think is really cool, right? When you think about custom audiences or, specific models, when you ingest retail data, that to me is what needs to happen as a natural next step.
So it's exciting to hear more about the AI at AMC in general, but Luis, I'd be kind of interested just in general in the UK market and Europe, outside of AI and AMC, obviously. What else is kind of trending for you and interesting when you think about the space of retail and e-commerce?
Absolutely. So I think social commerce, so the cousin, right, that's always there, you see a lot of activity in basically Italy and Spain. Like those are markets where that has really taken off. If you think about Amazon Live, it has done some work over there. I think there's definitely more advanced on this side of the pond. Last year, WPP did an award-winning campaign with Nestle on that. Publicis launched, the first ever one with Samsung over there. So there's some pockets of that happening, but it's not as established, I would say, right? But if you look at, the way people are interacting in other marketplaces, like I mentioned, Italy and Spain, that's where you really see TikTok taking off in that sense. I think one thing that's very unique, I think specifically to the UK, is digital screens. So like in-store digital screens. So, you can buy programmatically, activate there, or, via the good old PO. But more and more, you're truly living up to that promise of omnichannel, right? Yeah. The question again becomes on measurement, and how do you measure this? What are the tools you need to do that apart, which is very interesting. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jason, just kind of as you hear that, representing Team USA here, right? Getting back to here locally, kind of when you hear that in Europe, what kind of comes to mind when you then think about it from the US perspective?
I think the digital screens concept is actually a very interesting one that's actually super relevant for customers, especially on Amazon, as you think about Whole Foods.
Yeah.
As you heard about, obviously, the acquisition way back when, and then retail activations. I'm hearing about that more and more. Mm-hmm. And there's a really interesting segment of, especially like, let's take CPG brands that are organic focused shoppers or targeting organic focused shoppers. They can reach people online and also in the aisle. And I think this is also where Walmart comes into play very, very uniquely, where they have a massive distribution advantage across the board with those online or in-store presence, where they have the online and then the in-store, and they can combine the both of them, which makes their value proposition very, very unique, even more unique than Amazon to a certain extent, because they have just many more stores, right? And so I think the digital screens concept, being in store, is a big one, where we've seen that cascade even in the US as well. Mm-hmm. And then the obvious one that Luis mentioned was TikTok Shop, right? Like that one is just taking off. That one is not even necessarily, I would say it's neck and neck in terms of the how quickly we saw retail media grow in these last 10, 15, however many years. TikTok Shop is probably going faster. And the impact that we continue to hear across the board is the measurement is probably the biggest question mark in the gap right now with TikTok Shop. But we're seeing a lot of folks say, hey, if we invest in TikTok, what is the impact that we have on our Amazon or Walmart revenue? And it's pretty substantial, right? And so I think those trends that Luis called out are very, very translatable. We're seeing that in the US as well. Absolutely.
I truly believe that Tesco is what Walmart is to Amazon in the UK. Yeah. If that makes sense. It's the same sort of large footprint, large reach, first party data. I mean, it's basically the same sort of playbook from that perspective. And I mean, it's such an amazing world, right? Like, everything's connected, right? It's all connected commerce. Yeah.
So in the space of retail media trends, obviously, guys, we're talking about AI, AMC, but there's a lot of other cool things happening. We've been hearing about ChatGPT and opportunities to buy products and shopping there. Big headline, JC, about that's ended after 6 months. Tell me a little bit more about it and kind of what were your thoughts when you saw that headline?
Yeah, I think the biggest headline was, I think Walmart ran a test, and basically Walmart saw that people that came from ChatGPT and landed on Walmart, conversion rate dropped pretty significantly. I think it was like 3 to 4x. And so I think that's where I think ChatGPT or OpenAI and ChatGPT even came out and said, look, like, we don't want to build a product that's okay. Like, we know what we're good at. And obviously the shopping experience, commerce experience, it takes a lot to build. And I think they realized that. And so I think the overall headline is, it's kind of where we talked about where, hey, is ChatGPT going to overtake, let's say, Amazon or Walmart from a shopping perspective? What part of the funnel are they going to impact? And it's pretty clear that the overall conversion part of the funnel is Amazon and Walmart still going to take the majority share. I'm still curious to see how the discovery phase shapes out. I still don't think that it will impact necessarily the upper funnel. I think it'll just expand the upper funnel of different ways that people are discovering products. Yeah. But definitely more to come. But definitely probably the biggest headline news is them dropping out, conversions dropping, and it was pretty interesting to see.
Was there anything to add as you kind of hear the headline?
I think it just kind of goes back to the original discussion we had that, it's an evolution, right? You start searching, then you have a conversation, you try to learn, and, the end of the spectrum is something buying for you or an agent, bidding on an agent. And obviously there's the hype and there's the reality, right? And I think that's basically what we're seeing here.
Yeah.
As you were mentioning this, we were in an event not so long ago where we had a conversation about this topic. And I think my own prediction, right, is that this will be ChatGPT or the agentic piece will become an embedded channel or a medium, but it's not going to overtake the way humans interact with humans or with the retail media networks, right? It will enhance certain areas, but it will definitely not be like, everything, right? And I think that early example shows that, in the end, or at least today, great to do mining of information, perhaps not so great to drive the final transaction.
And I think it is still a testament of it's still a lot of test and learns and stuff like that. Well, guys, thanks so much. Luis, it was exciting having you here
Thank you.
from Europe. Definitely excited about continuing to see the trends and changes in retail media. Also, as we think about next steps, I know I'll see you very soon.
Yes.
We're back in Europe. We got Unbox in
Dusseldorf in Germany.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun in a couple weeks' time. So really excited to head over there, and please continue to send us your thoughts and topics and whatever you'd like us to cover. We're really excited about talking about what's the latest in retail media. And it's great to have you again this week, and looking forward to seeing you soon. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.